Hello, welcome back to English Valley Cafe. I'm Anne. Today in this video, we're going to talk about age. That's right. Do you know how to talk about your age or other people's age? In this video, we're going to go over a common mistake that English learners make when they talk about age. And I'm going to share with you some phrases that you can use to talk about age. And stay until the end of this video because I'm going to share with you two idioms that native speakers use to describe age. Now, before we get started with this video, I should say that in the American culture, it is considered impolite to ask other people their age. So if you don't know the other person, let's say you meet a stranger on the street, you don't want to ask the other person their age, especially if they are ladies, because this is a very sensitive question. Now, unless you know the other person very well, or maybe you just happen to talk about, getting old or aging or something related to age, and you know the other person will feel comfortable sharing with you their age. Otherwise, trying to stay away from asking people how old they are. Now, I'm going to start with a common mistake that I often hear English learners make when they talk about age, and that is using the wrong verb. I often hear, I have 40 years old, or I have 40, I have 21 years old. We don't use the verb have. And we don't use the verb get. So I hear English learners tell me, oh, my grandma gets 80 years old. In English, we use the verb to be, the be verb. So we can say he is 41, she is 20. So we use the be verb is or am. And in this case, if you're talking about yourself, you can say I'm 41. You can leave out the years old, is optional. I am or he is. All right, so make sure that when you talk about age, you're using the be verb. Now, what if you don't really want to tell people your exact age? Here's a common phrase that we use, and that is 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s. So I can say, for example, she is in her 20s. That means she is somewhere in the 20, like 21, 22, 23, 28, in her 20s. So we say in her 20s, in his 20s, or in her 40s. Now, if you want to tell somebody like you're in the early 20s, you can say, I'm in my early 20s. So early 20s would be like 21, 22, 23. And then we have in the mid 20s or in the mid 30s. And mid would be like 24, 25, 26. And then we have in the late, okay, in the late 20s or in the late 40s. And that would be like 20, I would say 27, 28, 29. Those are considered the late, and then whatever the age is. So we have in the 20s, in the 30s, in the 40s, or you can be a little bit more specific and say in the early 20s. So I'm in my early 40s, or he is in his early 30s. He is in his late 30s. Okay, so this is another way to tell somebody your age if you don't want to reveal your exact age. Now, here are some other words that we can use to describe someone's age. And the first one is teen or teenagers. So when we're talking about teenagers, it's between 13 to 19. Okay, so between 13 to 19, they are considered teens or teenagers. So I can say, oh, he's a teenager, or she's a teenager. Or I can say, he's in her teens, in her teens. Now, after teenager, then we become an adult. So I can say, for example, she's an adult, or he's an adult. Okay, he is or she is an adult. Now as we get older and we reach maybe around 45 to 60 years old, we'll call them middle-aged. Okay, middle-aged. So for example, I can say, oh, the cashier today at the grocery store was a middle-aged man in his 50s. And then as we get older, then we become a senior, or some people would say it elderly. And typically in the US, I would say a senior, maybe starting at like 65, they would be considered a senior. And in the US, if you are a senior, you can get some discounts like at restaurants, or if you go to amusement parks or museums, some kind of entertainment places, they will give senior discounts. Here we have a very useful verb, turn. So we turn whatever age. And this is before we reach the age, we can say I'm turning. So for example, if you are 30 right now, and let's say your birthday is next week and you will be turning 31. Okay, so that means that you're not at that age yet, but you're gonna turn, you're going into that age. So we use turn. So you can say, oh, next week I'm turning 45. Or next week is my birthday and I am turning 28. Next is using at and then the age. And this is very common and very useful when you want to talk about something that, an event or some kind of action that you started doing at a certain age. So we can say at 18 or at 45. So for example, I started driving at 18. I started driving at 18. Okay, that means when I turned 18 years old, I started driving ever since. Or she got her first teaching job at 21. She got her first teaching job at 21. Now be careful, don't use with, because sometimes I'll hear English learners say, oh, I started driving with 18, or she got her first teaching job with 21. It's not with, but at. All right, let's take a look at these two sentences. My 3-year-old son. My son is 3 years old. What's the difference? Can you tell the difference here? In the first sentence, 3-year-old son, we're using the age 3-year-old to describe the son. So here we're not going to add s to year. We're just going to use hyphen, like 3 hyphen year hyphen. So 3-year-old son, or my 5-year-old daughter. In the second sentence, my son is 3 years old. Here we're talking about the age, right? So 3 years, we're going to add an S to years. So 3 years old. My son is 3 years old. Or my daughter is 5 years old. Lastly, I'm going to share with you 2 common idioms that native speakers use to talk about age. And the first one is over the hill. Over the hill. Are you 40 yet? If you are 40, then we say over the hill. So I can say she is 40 years old. She's over the hill. I'm turning 40 tomorrow. I'll be over the hill. And another common idiom is to be young at heart. And I love this one. I think you'll appreciate this idiom as you get older. It just means that, to be youthful and have a positive attitude no matter what your age is. So it's like saying, age is just a number. Okay, it's just a number. So for example, I can say she has 4 grandchildren, but she's young at heart. She has 4 grandchildren. She may be old, but she's young at heart. All right, hope you enjoyed this video and find it useful. If you did, make sure you subscribe and tap on the bell notification. and I will see you back here next week for a new lesson.